Welcome to the Sales Career Podcast. This is your host, Kevin Hopp. Whether you're an executive, sales leader, or just getting your career in sales started, I'm here to help you read between the lines and hear the real stories that you can't get from a resume or from a LinkedIn profile, all designed to help you shape your own sales career. Let's dive right into today's episode and see what we can learn. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Sales Career Podcast. My guest today, Ryan Pereus, my outbound brother from another mother who's been doing outbound as a service on the other side of the country there in Philadelphia, PA for a bit. He also is a founder and manager and player of a football club. Can't wait to dig into that, hear a little bit about his footy adventures here.
Yes, sir.
Everybody welcome the great and powerful Ryan Pereus.
Thank you, Kevin. I feel very humbled. The biggest step in my career as a football manager, I'm trying to be the new Ted Lasso. I think that's what it is.
So Ted Lasso was the show that I didn't want to watch.
Oh.
That I was like, I don't like soccer. Oh, whatever that actor's name. I'm like, he's funny, but I'm not like entertained by that. And then so many people, like everybody in my life, like my mom texted me and was like, have you seen Ted Lasso?
Yeah.
I'm like, why is everybody watching Ted Lasso? Like, why is this? What's the deal?
It's going to convert you. So did you start watching it?
I watched it. Yeah. And it's great. It's great,
Yeah.
right? I'm not like a pound in the pavement like Ted Lasso fan now, but like it's pretty good show.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's actually pretty good humor and it's wholesome, and it's good, kind of good acting. So I like it.
Totally.
Yeah.
So that has nothing to do with sales or careers. So let's pull it back for the audience here. What I like about your LinkedIn, Ryan, is you are so all in on Superhuman Prospecting, which is the business you own, and want to hear all about that you don't even have any background of your other roles. I can't even see any other roles on here. So it's like, who is Ryan? I own Superhuman Prospecting and H2H Scripts, and that's all I do.
I know.
So talk to me about that.
Yeah.
Did you have sales jobs before this, or how'd you get into being a business owner?
Yeah, that would be crazy if this is the only job I had. That would be quite a podcast.
Well, I said on the first pod, I'm going to find somebody who's had one job and interview them. Like long time. Like someone who's had one sales job for 25 years. Like account executive at blah, 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 25 years.
Right.
I want to talk to that guy.
Right out of high
Like,
school all the way to retirement.
Yeah.
Man, no. Actually, I heard that in one of your recent podcasts where you were going through a LinkedIn profile, and I thought, oh my God, do I need to go and update this for Kevin for his podcast? And I almost did it. But I figured, you know what, we could probably just talk through it. Yeah, man, I was thinking about this podcast, and sales career did start right out of college for me. I didn't realize the sales profession as it is today. You talk about different titles of people, right? Like instead of sales development rep, back in the day it was lead generation specialist, stuff like that. But the activities and the skills that you build are pretty similar. So my first job out of college, in modern day terms, I was a sales development rep manager at 23, managing 40 people at 23 years old.
What was the business? What were you guys doing? What were you selling?
Yeah. So to kind of break it down in terms of that business model, it was a little bit different than what we consider today. It was called an event marketing manager. So I worked for a major remodeling franchise in Central PA, and bathroom remodeling. And my job was to hire lead generation specialists or event marketing development reps that worked at area malls and trade shows and would basically engage people as they walk by and try to generate leads cold as they walk by.
I love that.
You probably heard of that.
That is such a
classic.
Such a hustle. Right? It's the one form of sales that I've never done, right? Like I've
Bless
gotten
you.
people's credit card information on the phone. I've done a lot of, enterprise software, other stuff like that. But the standing in the mall kiosk,
Oh my God. The sand people.
that's raw.
Yeah. The folks that like sell you sand or whatever.
Right.
It's very similar to that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you obviously, when you're doing this, you made the move at some point to B2B, right?
Yeah.
And I think B2C sellers out there, like I'm gonna get a good one for the pod for sure. I don't know a lot about that world, and I don't know a lot of people that have stayed in B2C selling. It seems like a place that you kind of start and you get your feet wet, but you made the jump to B2B at some point. Talk to me about that. How'd you go from like managing this giant team of B2C sellers, business to consumer, and now obviously you got into B2B at some point?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think there was probably an intentional jump. It was more of other sales opportunity and still young in the career. So, open to different markets. It was one of those things. So I was like, yeah, I'll try a different industry. The next one after that was a specialty construction company. So I had just known, I had a little connection in my network and got into a company by the name of GPRS. They're a $50 to $100 million company right now. I don't know what they're valued at. But I got in early on through some connections from my hometown in Ohio and was the regional sales manager for Philadelphia area. So my job was to, present to general contractors, architects, subcontractors to try to, generate business in a brand new market. So I think that the jump was, like I said, a little bit less intentional. And then just kind of started to stay in that space once I realized that it was better. So
there you go. Yeah. That it was better. Interesting. So you're selling the construction. You're in the construction industry there. How does this all add up to starting Superhuman, right? Because I want to get to the story and kind of the why behind Superhuman Prospecting, which is the business you own today.
Yeah, for sure. So that first job out of college I had was probably the catalyst for Superhuman. And it even goes before that. You talk about a sales career, and that's exactly what I've done in a lot of aspects. But, sales can start, beyond just kind of a transaction. So there's a lot of like aspects of my childhood that actually had sales kind of attached to it. And one of those things, and this is like tell all. This is I haven't really shared this before, but I was born into a born again Christian family. So if you know anything about that, it is very much about sharing the gospel. So I never looked at this as a sales skill, but I was told, my role on earth is to convert people to my religion. So
that's sales.
And it's sales.
That's the oldest form of sales.
It's the oldest form. So
ditch your religion and come to mine. Pray to my God.
Exactly. So there was a lot of that built into me early on, and I think that's kind of where some of the skills came from in sales. But when you translate it to a professional situation, the leadership and kind of the guidance I had coming right out of college was all about like the cutthroat sale. It was all about, whatever it took to get the deal. And it didn't matter if you, lied, kicked and screamed to try to get that conversion. You just had to do it. And so that I think was a moment in my career where I had a lot of like, I guess it would be called like dissonance, because while I was good at this type of role and I liked it, I thought that I was just like, getting people to do what they never wanted in the first place. Here, sign up for this bathtub,
right.
And I'll say and kick and scream and lie, whatever I need to. And that's how I was told. That's how I was like trained. It's not necessarily how I played it out. And I think when I found my own like piece with how to sell, that's kind of where, the human to human aspect of superhuman prospecting kind of was born, And so it actually started as a sales consulting company that really I just did basic stuff for sales development, So I would start off with script writing. I did kind of training, little boot camps here and there, and just help businesses with kind of their conversation from 0 to 1. And that's kind of how Superhuman started. I just went into the marketplace with a message, and the message was, sell like a human in the 21st century. You don't have to be a sleazy sales guy in order to have a career that you're proud of. And so
I like that. That's a good message. You don't have to be a sleazy sales guy.
You don't have to.
So what I think is interesting about H2H, human to human, right, is what's the alternative of human to human? Is it dog to human? Is it giraffe to human?
Well,
is it fish to human?
That's so funny. I think that actually came from, B2C and B2B. Speaking of that, where, there's kind of this, I'm a business, you're a business, and there's a transaction. And we're going to do and say whatever we can to get that transaction in terms of kind of go-to-market models. And so I think the H2H came from, businesses aren't just entities and financial transactions. They're people running those entities and transactions. So what does that do to a sales cycle? What does that do to a sales relationship? Well, it adds a whole different dynamic, because you're working with a person, you're working with a relationship, and people aren't just, robots yet.
That's right. Yet. Yeah. So, I mean, what I think is really interesting is, pardon me, a lot of the technology we see out there in the sales tech world is pushing to more and more of this idea that you don't need people.
Yeah.
Like trying to make sales way more digital and way more, like look at the chatbot space. It's kind of blown up recently.
Yeah.
The whole idea of like, hey, just get someone to go to your website and this robot will get them through the buying process, answering the yes, no questions all the way down to click buy. Right. So it is something that I see happening. But at the end of the day, I think digital transformation is coming for all of us, but good sales skills in terms of how to talk human to human will never not be something that people need, right? Like I think we're always going to have a job if you know how to sell.
Yeah, I mean, especially with Zoom meetings and web conferencing, I mean that in itself has added another form of human to human. For better, for worse, in some aspects, right? You're kind of replacing the face to face. At the same time, it's a new channel where there's live human interaction. And I think that is very hard to replace. I am not extremely knowledgeable or I guess like up to speed on like kind of the advancements of AI and, how close we are to replacing salespeople. It seems to be pretty far off. I think the biggest part of that is because of the emotional connection. Part of relationships is that empathetic, sympathetic side. And it's kind of a need that people want to have filled within themselves. It's kind of hard for a robot to do that. At least this.
That's right. So one of the things that I see as a trend, and I promise the next thing that I talk about will bring us back to the career topic, but this is really interesting to me, the whole idea of technology and sales, right? Yeah. One of the things I see that's really taking over a lot of tech companies is PLG, right? Product-led growth. So the idea of instead of me cold calling you to get you to think about the problem and think about using this solution and think about buying my stuff, you're going to find your way to my platform on your own. You're going to sign up for free. You're going to get into the product itself. And then the PLG motion is it's no longer a cold call, right? In a way, it's kind of nice because people are going to be signed up. You're already going to have their contact information. And the salesperson reaching out is actually just a product expert now, saying, hey, I saw you signed up. I'm wondering if you had questions about this. Are you using this part of the service? Are you using that part of the tool? And then it becomes so much more consultative, even though it's a tech thing, right?
Really interesting. Yeah, I I mean, I know about that. I guess I haven't heard that term yet, the PLG.
PLG?
Yeah.
You haven't heard PLG?
I don't think I have, man. Dude, don't listen to podcasts. This is what happens. You start to become ancient. But so
you're not that old. Come on.
No. But I guess like the PLG, give me a little bit of more on that, because I think I have a comment, but I want to clarify. Where is this coming from? Is this coming from big tech? Is this coming from sales leaders? Who's leading the PLG movement?
I think PLG is actually driven by buyers, right? I think that as people are getting way more tech savvy and as software is eating the world, it's no longer revolutionary for someone to call you and say, hey, I have this SaaS product that could change what you do in XYZ way. It's not like, oh, okay, wow, I've never thought of that before. That's not what people are saying anymore. That's not the conversation. The conversation is, hey, you're using this product. Have you seen how this product's slightly different, better, not the same, right?
Yeah.
So buyers themselves are going to the internet and doing so much research, right? Like I'm sure you've seen those statistics that like buyers today have done 80% of the selling for themselves by the time they come to your website. By the time an inbound lead comes in, they're not just like, oh, hey, I stumbled on this website. What is this? They're like, yeah, so I have some really specific questions about this. And the next evolution of that, of someone coming inbound, is them just getting into your product. So instead like make it easy, right? So people are making it really easy. That's what PLG is it's no longer request a demo. It's jump into the product yourself. Sign up.
Yeah. Just start using it. No. Yeah. Okay. So
none of your clients at Superhuman are having you call people that are users yet?
So, all good thoughts here. I think the first comment I have on it is it's basically an extension or the next level, like you said it, of inbound. And that was what I had in my mind, right? Because the key principle, it sounds like in PLG, is that there's a need that someone already has or an interest that someone already has, whether that's from an ad that you put out there and it's been developed over time, or whether it's something that they've already internally discussed with their team that they need, So I think going back, to our original conversation was kind of like the need for human interaction, But there's this I think there's two comments here. One is that, outbound in itself, I believe, is a fundamentally different paradigm than inbound. Because in inbound, again, the interest was generated by the buyer. To me, in outbound, this is what we train our team on and how we go about our cold calls with our methodology, is that, outbound is all about a belief transference. You're not trying to, when you find people that already have a need and identify the need, well, that's like icing on the cake because they already had that need and you found that one person. In order to maximize outbound, from what we've seen, our job is to help bring awareness to our product or service, on our dime. So we're doing it, or on our time as well, on our time, and in our time, and when we want to have that ultimate control over our destiny. And then it's our job to spark that interest and then begin to transfer a belief of the value for that person, or to that person.
Right. So interesting you use the word belief, right? Because you come from this Christian background. And you're really out there just converting believers, man.
Absolutely.
You're spreading the gospel of whatever your client's selling.
That's a good connection there. Yeah. See, it's all spiritual.
I think that's what it is, man. Look, I was raised I like to joke that I'm a recovering Catholic.
Yeah, nice.
I was raised very Catholic, went to Catholic school, went to church every week for years and years and years and years. No longer do, but it is sort of the same idea of ritualistic belief in something, right? And that's like kind of one of the things, like when I'm training SDRs and I'm training cold callers with my clients and stuff, I try to get them to think like, guys, you have to have the opinion that whatever your solution is just the bee's knees. It has to be the greatest thing. And if you have that like core tenet of like, hey, I understand you're doing something today, but what you could do with what we have is just better, it's going to come out of your pores. It's going to come out in your tone. It's going to come out in everything.
Yeah.
Right. And I tend to teach it a little bit less like a belief and a lot more like an opinion, you know? Like, I think a lot of people that end up in sales are the kids growing up that people would say, you're going to make a great lawyer one day. You're so opinionated. and then if you don't love school, you end up in sales. Sales. I think, because that was me, right? Growing up, I was so opinionated and had something to say about everything. And people would say, oh, you're going to be a lawyer one day, aren't you? Because you just like to talk. And when I got to school, I was like, man, I don't like books. So I ended up in sales.
No, that's pretty cool. Makes great content. I see your opinions out there, and it's creating a rift, man. It's awesome.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Content, baby. 2022 is the year of content. So talk to me a little bit about starting the business. How did you make the move from like being a salesperson to now being a business owner? Like you're the first person I'm interviewing on this podcast that's been a business owner for a long period of time here. For many, many years, you've been out there doing it as a CEO, which is incredible. But it's a sales company, so I think it's super specific. And I want to hear a little bit about that story. Like, how'd you go from being sales manager, sales leader to I'm going to start a business?
I think the answer lies in, that classic. I think Jim Collins talks about it in Good to Great. I think Stephen Covey talks about it in one of his books, one of the 7 Habit books or something like that, about finding the combination between your talents, your skills, and what the world needs. And it was a couple years of just thinking about that. I didn't really like selling bathtubs. It wasn't really hitting the core soul aspect. Also, especially construction wasn't really my thing either. It was cool. It was cool to be in those positions to get the experience. But what I really identified was that selling was, something I was very passionate about and had a knack for. So at the time, it was about 2014, and I was working for my dad's company, which actually is a tech company based in Ohio, and he has a software that helps school districts with their money. So I started to do some business development for him and was having success. And this is during the rise of digital. SEO and websites and inbound in the digital age was really starting to boom. And I was still having human-to-human connections and generating appointments and having demos and getting sales from that kind of thing. So I thought, if this is working here and it was working in my last role and I was working in my first role, maybe this is something that is still going to be impactful. So I'd read this book. I think it's called the 21. And sorry, dude, I read books. Maybe that's the difference. I'm a books. Your podcast. I still would like to do podcasts, but so there's a book called 21 Immutable Laws of Marketing. And there's this thing they talk about, which is the rubber band effect. I think that's what it's called. So when there is a pull in a certain direction of a product, there's typically some type of opposite market that arises because of it. So the example here is, because people are starting to move more and more towards digital, in that time there was actually, from what my studies and my identification through just kind of learning process, I think there was a little bit of a lull or kind of downward spiral for the sales profession, and maybe that was because of the all of the telemarketing issues that were happening in the 80s and 90s, and all of the TCPA and telemarketing sales rule, all that stuff was kind of happening. Everyone hates spam calls, so it had this bad name. But with the rise of digital, those things kind of subsided. Digital was now becoming prevalent, and it created a new opening, I think, because people are now so entrenched with digital and less humanity that a phone call once in a while wasn't so bad. So when we
interesting.
So when we started to write scripts and do some consulting, and we were doing outsourced event marketing as well at the time, I was really just out there like, hey, what services would people use in the human-to-human, skill set? And that's how Superhuman started. We started with consulting, script writing. We did event marketing, outsourcing and staffing, and we had a few cold call clients. So it ended up that a lot of the folks who we did the script writing for it said, this script's great, but screw this thing. Can you guys call for us? And that's how it began.
Do it for me, huh?
Do it for me.
Do it for
absolutely.
me. What a game, by the way. Those of you out there who know me, I've been in and out of the outbound as a service game. But I've ran 2 different companies that do this, and it is a grind.
Oh, it's the most labor intensive office job that you could possibly have.
Yeah. So how big's your company today? Talk to us a little bit about that. How many BDRs do you have?
Yeah, it's right around 50 now. I have to go check our exact numbers. But
you have 50 SDRs?
Well, 50 team members, 50 employees.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
Dang, man. Congrats, though. Let's think about that. We're recording this in 2021 still.
Yes.
And I think that's a really good reflection for you on some of the last days of the year here to think.
Last hours.
Man, 50 people. Yeah, this is incredible.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I guess thinking about that from the outside in, it definitely, I think, seems like a lot. What I do though is I don't have a cap for how many people our operations team can hire. At least I've never had to put the brakes on fully, because we set up our team kind of as a sales organization. We're not just consultants offering cold call services. We've designed Superhuman to be a sales organization that sells cold calling. So we have goals and revenue numbers that our AEs need to hit to sell packages. So then there's an equal and opposite. This is the blessing and the curse of outsourced selling, right? But every time you sell a new deal, guess what the operations has to do? Bring in new callers.
That's right.
That's kind of how it's been going, I guess.
Yeah, we had a really fun time when I was at Sales Gig trying to get that level right. We want to sell, and you land a big deal, and you're like, crap, we got to go hire 2 more people. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then when you hire somebody, there's a delay in when they're going to be super effective on the phone, right? Because I got to download my whole methodology into their brain, and that takes a week at least. Right. Yeah, that's a grind, but you're out here doing it, man. So the H2H Sales Scripts, is this like a separate business? It's a different thing on your LinkedIn. I think that's a question. Part of this podcast is everyone's going to go to your LinkedIn. They're going to see it. Yeah. And what I want to do is I want to pick apart some things on your LinkedIn so that they go, oh, okay, yeah, Kevin talked about that in the pod. So why is it 2 separate things? Do you do scripting as a service, separately? You sell that, or? Yeah,
so that I actually never got rid of. What I ended up doing is separating the entities. So Superhuman Prospecting is its own entity right now, where it used to be all in one. And then we have a separate business that is set up for H2H Sales Scripts, because eventually we'd like to build that out a little bit more. I think script writing as a service, I think consulting, getting teams started. I mean, I know that you do that all the time for your role now, so you know how fun that can be. And there's a lot of people that do it very well, and there's a huge market for it. And as many new businesses that are opened up in a year are as many new prospects that are on the market for you. So we've opened that up as a separate service. We do have a video course now. We have script writing services that we still perform. It's just at a little bit slower pulse because we're so focused on Superhuman. But the one part about H2H that is very much alive and well and still developing is that every single one of our client SDRs are trained on that methodology. So it's not just a service, it's also a method of going about a cold call. Cool. Just like you have a method, like you stated, we want all of our team to be trained on that method. And it's not necessarily because we don't believe that there's other methods, right? Like the 27 seconds is a really big one out there right now, right? Maybe there's a Sandler sales training or Medic. I don't know all the other cold call methods, but we've developed this method as a way to make it easier for our client SDRs to build muscle memory around the sales conversation language from 0 to 1.
Yep.
And so
awesome.
That's it. Yeah. So
Okay, I like that a lot. Yeah, and it's interesting, right? Like Justin Michael is doing a lot of stuff in this space. I don't know if you ever interact with Justin Michael. Yeah, so his company, I think it's called Hypercycle. What he's gone and done is he's cataloged and like captured a lot of these methodologies for cold calling and cold email and all sorts of stuff like that. And he brought me into that a little bit. Like I did live cold calling with him, and his question was like, "What's your methodology? Like, what do you do? Like, what do you subscribe to? Kind of like, what's your religion?"
Yeah.
And I was like, it turns out it's like just whatever. It's my methodology. It's Kevin Hopp's methodology.
Nice,
right? It's because I think that
Hop cycle.
You could say
kind of like hype cycle.
Yeah,
hop cycle.
Yeah, we could do that hop cycle. But what I found is teaching people. You teach every person to say the same thing every time, it will come out as inauthentic. People need to put it in their own words, right? Yeah. So I like to use frameworks, meaning, I'm going to tell you how to get up this crazy path to get to the end, which is setting a meeting. But that doesn't mean that you have to say every word the exact same way, right? And one of the things that SDRs are always blown away by is when I'm teaching them and I demonstrate the script, they'll be like, "Oh, well, you said words that weren't in the script." And I'm like, "Yeah, but did it sound like a script?" They're like, "No, it just sounded like you were talking." And I'm like, "That's because I used words that weren't in the script, and you just flow, right? A script is a guideline, it's a handrail. It's not read this." And that's where robots are going to replace us. If you are only reading what is written, a robot can do that, right?
Yep.
A robot can do that.
Now,
well, geez, man, I hope robots don't replace us all. I tell you what, that would be bad.
Yeah, I think we got a good fighting chance. I think I don't really know. I know what's the word that they say? It's like starts with an S. Oh my God, it's not coming to me. But it's like the point where they're autonomous. What's that word? You know what I'm talking about? It's like the point where AI becomes autonomous, and I'm not going to Google it.
Huh. That's scary. I don't know what it is, but maybe the evolution of sales is we're all going to be selling in the metaverse.
There you go. That's the new face-to-face meeting. Is on Meta.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get a big group of board members and just like come dressed up, super fancy with like a really nice digital suit.
Yeah, and you're just sitting on your couch, like in your boxers, just with like the metaverse thing on, just like, "Oh, hello, and here's the sales projections." Like, could be, man. Who knows? Maybe we need to start selling scripts in the metaverse.
In the metaverse, yeah, metaverse compatible. Sounds good. Well, yeah,
it does. Well, hey, man, we could talk about this all day, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. I do really appreciate you coming on and sharing a bit of your story. I want to wrap things up today by asking the same 3 questions that I ask everybody. First one here. What's the biggest commission check that you've ever gotten? And as a business owner, it might be a little bit of a different answer, but what's the biggest one-time check that you've gotten from sales?
Yeah, so, I heard this from other ones, and you guys got me beat, man. Like, as a sales rep, I think it might be, I'm not even going to say it's because of the East Coast, but, hey, that's where all these sales happen. I was nowhere near you guys. I think my biggest commission check was around $7,000 when I was a rep working for GPRS. Yeah, that was
$7,000 is the biggest one-time check
from as a sales rep before Superhuman. Because that was a commission, right? Once we got into Superhuman, it's more of a biggest sale, and then it goes to the company. You want me to answer that one? Or you just want the commission?
I mean, sure, whatever you want. I mean, it's this is one of those things that I think the reason I ask everybody this question is I don't know about everyone else, but when I'm on LinkedIn and I'm looking at all these sellers, I'm looking at these people in the sales space, I always think to myself, well, how legit are they really? Like, is this person just like popular and they never make money, right? Because we're all here on LinkedIn doing all this stuff for money. Let's be honest, it's sales, right? So like, who's out there really winning it, So it's an interesting question to help people frame up like, ooh, this guy gets big checks.
Yeah. It's like now that's like 1 month of rent here. So it's like definitely, it was different in those days. Probably my biggest sale was a contract that we won that turned into, it was our first one ever. And it was actually, it was an event marketing staffing contract with a major, insulation company. I think it turned into about $150,000. And I always remember that one because it was like the first
There you go.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so that was
150K.
Yeah.
I like it. Cool. So the next question is, sales or not, throughout your career here, what has been your favorite job?
It's funny. I think when I sit and I just reflect, I would love to continue doing the script writing and consulting. I think that's one of my favorite work activities. So I think that's my real answer. If I had to really choose it, my life depended on it, I would say the consulting side of selling is probably my favorite job I've ever had. And maybe you can attest that as well.
Interesting.
But my actual favorite job was actually, was back in the day when I was in college. I worked at Plg Sports. Do you have that out there?
Yeah.
Okay.
We do.
So the reason I like that so much is because I could find, first of all, the employee discount was really big. So you could get baseball mitts, you could get golf bags for 40% of even the used price. Nice. I actually ended up getting fired from that job because this was in the day of eBay when that was starting to get on the scene. And so what I would do is I would buy things from the Plg Sports store at my discount and then sell it on eBay. And they didn't.
They didn't like that, huh?
They didn't like that. So that job didn't last very long, but there you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I love that. That might be illegal. Probably was illegal. But let's the last question here, I think is one of the most interesting, right? Which is, let's say money didn't matter. Yeah. You didn't have to pay your bills. You had all the money in the world. What would you do with your time?
What would I do with my time? Oh my goodness. Well, the first thing I've always wanted to do is I would love to be a sales professor. The thing is, professors, you don't really make a ton of money doing it, but I would love to be in a position where I'm training the next generation of salespeople, and instilling some good methods and knowledge and philosophies in their brain to help crush it when they get right out of college or whatever they're doing. So
interesting. So you'd be a professor teaching sales for free. If you had all the money in the world, you'd be a sales professor.
I think so. I would like to do something like that. And maybe do a couple publications here and there, but nothing crazy. I think that would be fun. Interesting.
Very interesting. Well, thanks, man. This has been a good time. It's always good to connect with you.
Yeah.
And your story is definitely really interesting here, going from an evangelical Christian background all the way to owning a company that has its own faith and dogma around the way to write scripts and do outbound. It's definitely a compelling story. Well, thanks, Ryan. I really appreciate you coming on, and we'll keep in touch here.
Thanks, man. Happy New Year.
If this episode is interesting to you, please share your thoughts on LinkedIn or Twitter. Tag me, and I might just feature your post in an upcoming episode of the Sales Career Podcast. Or, if you want to connect directly, go to hopconsultinggroup.com, and we'll find a way to work together. Cheers.